Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian at Naval Station Newport in Rhode Island, where we've been covering the International Sea Powers Symposium at the Naval War College nearby. In coordination with the symposium have been a number of ships here, including the pre-commissioning unit John P. Murtha, the newest LPD class of amphibious assault ship. It is LPD 26, and we have with us the commanding officer of the ship, which is Kevin Parker. Captain Parker, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you. Good morning, Vago. Good to have you.
We just had an extraordinary tour of the ship, and we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Obviously, this is an enormously busy time, 2 weeks until you arrive in Philadelphia for the formal commissioning ceremony, even though you have a special certificate now. Tell us a little bit about how it's been going and what more has to be done before you guys are totally ready for that ceremony.
Sure. So the ship delivered to the Navy. We took custody of it about mid-May of this year and spent an extra 3 months in the builder's yard getting the crew trained up and ready to get the ship underway. We've been underway since 11 August. Traveled across the Caribbean, did a couple port visits there, up to Florida, and now we're up here for the Sea Power Symposium. The ship's just operating wonderfully, beautifully. Crew's incredibly proud of their ship, and it's just a pleasure for me to be up here and at this fine location and be able to show off this ship.
You really had hosted quite an event with either the heads of Navy or Coast Guard of more than 100 countries here. What is, obviously the program has been a little bit controversial throughout its history, but what is the capability? You've been in the Navy for 30 years, you commanded 2 Perry-class frigates, you've been aboard amphibs. What's the kind of capability this ship is going to bring to the fleet?
So this class of ship, and in particular this LPD 26 being the most advanced of that class, brings a level of versatility to the fleet that I think is unheard of in other previous amphibious ship classes. This ship can do everything from humanitarian assistance to disaster response kind of operation to maritime security operations, special forces operations, all up to a full high-level marine assault of a beach, traditional type warfare. So huge amount of capability here and a great degree of versatility. In fact, I would argue that these ships are and are going to become the Navy's 911 force of the future. When the president needs something, he's going to call an LPD.
Obviously, because there's an enormous amount of flexibility. You carry an air detachment, you carry Marines aboard, you can carry a large vehicle force as well, and then you can also put some power projections weapons on the ship as well. Talk to us a little bit about the capacities of the ship. So, for example, we have a V-22 that's there on the flight deck, obviously a very important aircraft for the Marine Corps. Talk to us a little bit about how many aircraft you're carrying, how many vehicles, how many troops, so that when you show up off of someplace, the kind of capability you're bringing to bear.
Sure. So in terms of capability, from the aviation standpoint, we can land and or launch 2 V-22s simultaneously. For smaller aircraft, SH-60s, we're talking about 4 simultaneously. Plus I've got a hangar where I'm able to bring one of them in and do whatever type of maintenance that needs to be done on it. Down in the well deck, I can carry 2 LCACs and or 1 LCU, a traditional landing craft. And in the vehicle decks, store an immense amount of marine equipment. Everything from Humvees and trucks all the way up to main battle tanks. So it's an absolutely tremendous capability.
And you guys have a very, very ingenious set of ramps, very, very roomy ones, right? As equipment gets bigger, there's some growth space that's been built into the ship. This ship is a very unique ship from a lot of perspectives. Tell us a little bit about some of the unique systems and radar capabilities that you have aboard this ship that aren't on other types.
Sure. So this ship first has the most advanced computer network that any of these LPDs have had, the SWAN, the Ship's Wide Area Network, that literally drives and controls all of the sensors and the operation of much of the equipment, from engineering up to combat systems. Additionally, the ship has much better sensors than previous ships of the class. We have the 48 Golf Air Search Radar, 3D Air Search Radar, which is really only found on aircraft carriers right now. So in addition to an immense and robust communications capability, we can support pretty much any operation, including potentially embarking a staff or any joint task force of that nature that needs to have that kind of communication capability.
When obviously, we talked a little bit about cyber. Cyber is obviously a big concern for everybody. You guys are a very, very cyber-dependent ship, as all of the newer classes of ships are. how comfortable are you that you guys have the right kinds of cyber protections in place, given that almost everything you're doing on the ship is driven by computers or on a central network?
Sure. So I'm incredibly comfortable with it. We have a cyber defense force and level of resourcing that's really unparalleled, and I think it's very effective. And in addition, the computer systems have backups. It's not like we're entirely reliant upon them. If they fail or come under attack that is able to destroy them, we're still able to shift back to a normal manual way of operating things, everything from our engines to our sensors to our weapon systems. So I'm not concerned at all. I think that our cyber capability simply adds an immense amount of utility to the ship and makes us all that much more effective.
Let me ask you one question about more distributed operations. Chief of Naval Operations has been talking, as Admiral Greenert, his predecessor, did, about being able to operate sometimes when major networks are down. As somebody who is commanding a capital ship, do you feel that the exercises and the training are getting up to speed where you feel that in the event that some of the big area networks, battle management systems and comm systems are down, you're still going to be able to execute your mission?
I'm very confident we are. And I think one of the things that really makes the United States Navy unique, and one of the things that's a true standout thing that makes us really powerful, is our ability to do distributed ops. And it's the way in which we train. The way in which we train is to give commanding officers of ships an immense amount of authority to do things when we don't have the ability to communicate. And I think that's an incredible strength of ours, and one that this ship certainly employs. You were a fellow on the Hill. You worked for Sea Power Chairman Gene Taylor of Mississippi. A beloved figure on the Hill. A lot of us enjoyed covering him. You enjoyed working with him. You worked with him at a time when the LPD-17 was under an enormous amount of criticism. There were a whole bunch of builders issues that were going on at the time. There were some propulsion issues of metal and other things found in the propulsion train. You're now the commanding officer of one of these ships. What's its actual real-world performance been like, and are those kind of challenges and problems something that, as far as you're concerned, are in the past? So first, I'll agree with you. I think the program had some issues with the early ships of the class. First, because they were new platforms, a new class of ship. But there were also problems. Hurricane Katrina did a lot of damage down on the Gulf Coast where they were being built. So there were a number of issues that contributed to that. But I believe, now having come and been a part of this program for a year and a half now, really, that I've been on this ship, that the program has really turned this around. We have not experienced with LPD-26 any of the problems that previous ships of the class have. And even the last two ships of the class before me really didn't experience much of any problems either. We've made the transit from Mississippi all the way up here about a month and a half. We've been underway, and we've had no major casualties, no problems with engineering or any of our combat systems gear. I just think the ship's performing spectacularly well. I think the program's done a great job of learning the lessons, and I think the builder has too. The builder's making a better ship, every one that they build right now, and I think that's something that shows with this ship.
Do you guys have any idea what your first deployment's going to be?
Do not. It's going to be a while. The normal part of the pre-com process is to do the commissioning, go to your home port, and then engage in an extensive amount of training and maintenance and upkeep. And so it's just too far out for me to see it and know what that deployment's going to look like.
I have to ask you one other question. We did go down to engineering. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a big enough geek where I love spending time in engineering spaces. Tremendous. Talk to us about the engineering features that this ship has, because there is, just the way everything is laid out seems like it's really, really designed to be serviceable and supportable over the long term.
And I think a lot of effort was put into both building an engineering control system that was smart and workable and made sense and allowed us to decrease the amount of manning we have in the spaces safely, and at the same time to put things together in a way that allowed them to be taken apart easily and fixed when that time came. I think it's an incredibly well-designed engine room, and I've spent a great deal of my career in engineering, and I'm just really, really happy to see it, and so is my chief engineer.
And speaking of innovations, the racks are something that's really great, including for Marines, right? So it's someplace where sailors spend such an enormous amount of time, but there's been an enormous amount of care that went into designing it.
Absolutely. So all of the racks on the ship, places where sailors sleep, are ones that you can sit up in and read a book, which is unheard of on amphibious ships of the past. In addition, The Marine Corps troop racks are exactly the same as the ship's crew racks, which is another unheard of innovation that the LPD-17 class brings. And I got to tell you, it makes a huge difference when sailors and Marines are happy. And you know, this kind of creature comfort really does make them happy.
Sir, thanks so much for spending so much time with us, and fair winds and following seas.
Thank you, Vago. It was a pleasure.